gentlemen, may I have your attention, please? The show starts in 3, 2, 1, go.
Good morning, CaneSport. It's August the 18th, 2022. I'm Gary Ferman, the publisher of CaneSport.com, joined as always by our managing editor, Matt Shodell, as we discuss the news of the day, presented once again by LifeWallet, where the time is now to take charge of your personal health. And Matt, I don't know if you noticed, but there's some air conditioning companies, I can't remember where it was, but they're starting to copy LifeWallet now and make some pretty good commercials with other kids around the country. And you know, that's what NIL is all about. And I just wanted to throw that in there right now because I was kind of happy to see that the LifeWallet commercial craze is taking off. And we got a new LifeWallet commercial to introduce later in the show that I think everyone's going to like a little bit. But first, we have to talk about the news of the day. And for us, the news of the day today is all about recruiting. And we'll be out of practice later. We'll bring you the usual array of coverage from the practice field that we always do. But we thought that this morning would be a great time to kind of hit not the reset button, but give you guys a capsule look at where recruiting is at every position, what prospects are on the board right now that are looking most likely to become future Hurricanes, and give you our opinion on where things stand with each of them. So without further ado, Matt, I'm going to start with the quarterback position. And you know, you would think there's nothing to talk about here. Jaden Rashada, Emory Williams, long since have been committed. But there's been some drama lately with Emory Williams. And, you know, he's been contacted by several schools, FSU, Auburn, among them, and isn't hiding it from anybody. Now, that tells me that there's a reasoning behind it. There is a strategy behind it. And Matt and I have made it clear that recruiting is far from over for anybody committed, not just to Miami, but any other school. That during this football season, when it comes to NIL deals, values are going to go up, values are going to go down, deals are going to change before kids are getting to the nitty gritty. And there's going to be all kinds of movement in recruiting, Matt, in my opinion, in December. Do you think Emory Williams will be one of them?
Look, quarterback more than any other position is NIL driven because the quarterback tends to be the face of the program. The quarterback tends to be the player everyone knows if they wind up being the starter. Fairly or not, when there's a quarterback battle in the spring or in the fall, that's all anyone cares about or asks about. And with that said, the tip of the NIL iceberg is quarterback, and you don't want your program to be the Titanic. And the way your program becomes the Titanic is if you have two quarterbacks committed, like Miami does, and if one of them doesn't maybe have the I don't know how to put it, the same buzz as the other one, which, you know, let's face it, Emory does not have the same buzz as Jaden. And perhaps Emory could get an NIL deal or you know, promised an NIL deal, which is of course illegal. But you know, everyone knows this happens.
Yeah,
somewhere else.
It doesn't really matter anymore. You know, it's like the bottom line is that you know there's NIL deals out there, and kids are going to know whether or not they have the prospects for a good NIL deal.
Right, especially a quarterback. If for anyone who has their head in the sand and thinks there weren't bags back whenever. Whoever has their head in the sand and thinks that every single top quarterback in the country doesn't have an idea what kind of NIL deal they're going to be getting and signing as soon as they sign, you know, I mean, I don't know what kind of CaneSport subscription Gary will sell you. He'll probably sell you a $99 subscription instead of a $1 subscription because, you know, you'll believe anything. So
right now it's $1.
It is $1.
It doesn't get better than that. And right, I hope everybody watching this show is taking advantage.
Right. My point is somebody who believes that there's no NIL deals being made to these top quarterbacks, they could pay the $99 because, you know, they'll do anything. So with that said, Emory Williams, certainly at this point, you know, let's face it. Right now, there's basically one guy at Miami that's offering NIL deals. He's not offering them tons of money to two quarterbacks. That's just not the way it works.
There's a second. The Kane connection, man.
Yeah, well, that's not a real thing yet. So
it might be. Like I said the other day, I got to look into it. I just haven't had time to look into it, but I know they formed, and that is supposedly the second collective, not the second, the first collective at Miami that I have been anticipating.
You're just still not grasping the concept that a collective of boosters trying to give money away to recruits is illegal. You're just not grasping that concept. I'm not sure why. You keep saying you look into it. It's not legal, okay? I don't care how many times you say, oh, I got to look at it, check it out and see. It's not a legal way of doing things. So regardless, if Emory Williams gets a big NIL deal from Auburn or somewhere else, and Florida State's a school, guess what? They'll be heavily involved with Florida State, I believe, as this thing goes forward. He may jump ship. I think Gary probably would say if he had to guess 50-50 or higher or lower, I think you would say it's better chance than 50-50 that he leaves, correct?
I don't know. I think it's going to come down to NIL. I really do. I think that the reason that they're being so public about all the schools that are approaching them is because they are laying the foundation for ultimately an NIL deal with somebody. And I don't believe, they may not, maybe they don't know, what their situation is going to be at Miami because they can't sign the NIL deal till December. But I think that it's going to come down to NIL for Emory Williams. I really do. I think that if it wasn't and there was no opening there, they wouldn't be making public all these other schools that are approaching them. They would just be telling the other schools, we're not interested. Don't call us anymore. But they're not doing that.
Yeah, so like Gary said, there's probably about a 90% chance that Emory Williams leaves the class. I respect your words, Gary. I'm not sure it's correct. But so listen. So let's say Emory Williams finds a better deal somewhere else, whatever. I've always said I have no problem with taking one top quarterback per class. I'm a fan of that. I'm not a fan of two quarterbacks in the class. Just looking ahead to future classes, I think it doesn't benefit you. So I'm fine with that. So now let's say in a hypothetical Gary Ferman world that only Jaden Rashada is left in your class. Now let's say the day before signing day, like I talked about yesterday, some school that, let's just pretend has Nike money. There's no school like that. But if there was one that had Nike money and says to Jaden's lawyer, which Jaden, every top recruit now has a lawyer, which is legal. Hey, man, your client comes here, $10 million a year, whatever it is. If it's somebody that they trust, and by the way, from what I've heard, Florida made a bigger offer than anybody else for Jaden, and Jaden just didn't believe they're actually going to pay it, is what I heard. Maybe the University of Florida collective is going to sue me. That's just what I heard.
I will say this, that I think things have changed in that NIL. I think people are being a lot more careful about these offers to recruits. And I think recruits are probably able to get knowledge of a framework of which they would be potentially getting an NIL deal, but they certainly can't sign the deals yet.
Of course, that's how it works. You're verbally, just like a commitment is verbal, you're verbally being promised by X school that, hey, we're going to take care of you, and here's what we think you're going to get, or however they want to phrase it. Whoever phrases it, it's not supposed to be someone from within the program. But there are also student athletes at some of these programs from this last cycle only, really, because that's when it really kicked in, that have been telling people, some of them are getting paid, and some of them are saying, hey, I was promised X, Y, and Z, and I only got X, So, if you're a top recruit and you're hearing that from a different program, and I've heard there's a couple of programs where that's been happening, then, that's not a good look on that program. That's going to affect that program, because if you don't believe the NIL deal, that's a big deal. And that's why I was concerned a while back that if John Ruiz was making promises and not fulfilling the terms of the contract because he had some contracts that fell through business-wise in the past, it would be a big problem for Miami, because he was at that time the face of Miami's program. He's sort of gone in the shadows, which I prefer now. But he was the face of the program. And if he blew up and just didn't pay the deals and was just trying to get his name out there to get his Life Wallet thing, to become public, or to get taken over in that weird whatever thing with NASDAQ, that would have been a major problem for Miami's program, because now no one's coming here because no one's trusting Miami's NIL program. Thankfully, that did not happen. He has been paying. Programs that have guys that are not paying, they are not. You can promise $20 billion to somebody. If there's a player on that team who tells you, hey, man, listen, I was promised whatever, and here's all I'm getting, or I'm not getting anything, no one's going to that school. So it's important that you do what you say at a program like Miami. And so far they have been. And a guy like Jaden Rashada probably has a decent idea that if he comes here and if he's successful, he'll have a pretty darn good NIL deal. So that's why he's here. But if somebody else who he trusts gives him, what he thinks will be a much, much bigger deal than he can get at Miami, because as Gary has said many times, Mr. Ruiz don't play when you try to mess with him and make him, get into a bidding war, then I don't know what happens. So this is what I'm saying. If you hit that iceberg where NIL blows up all your recruiting efforts just because the day before signing day or a week before signing day or a month before signing day, some other entity comes in and lets some lawyer of some prospect who's committed to man, we'll double whatever they're telling you. That's a problem, man. That's not what college football should be about. I'm not a fan of that. That's why signing day should be every day of the year. Prevent all this ridiculous stuff. I'm praying this isn't something that's going to happen. And listen, it could benefit Miami too. Like maybe somehow there's some magical mysterious aura that goes out through the sub-universe that winds up getting people here that are committed to other places. I don't know what's going to happen. Nobody does. And as we can go through this whole list, this is how it stands right now. But NIL means it's not where a recruit wants to go. It's where a recruit can take care of his family best.
Well,
good, but it's not great for
the Canes Connection collective that you say is not allowed to be a collective and isn't allowed to exist. They have an FAQ on their website, and it specifically asks the question about recruits, and they say NIL compensation cannot be used to encourage or induce a prospective student athlete's enrollment at a particular institution.
Yeah, we know that's illegal, of course. But what I'm saying is everyone knows no one's agreeing to that. No one's abiding by that. That's what I'm trying to tell you, Gary. You know that.
Yeah, no, of course I know that.
Yeah, that's what I was talking about with the $99 subscriptions. People who believe what you just read are the ones who will pay you $99 a year instead of the $1 subscription we're offering.
So anyway, I think Emory Williams wants to go to Miami. I think he likes Miami. I think, he doesn't, they don't want to be dumb. They want an NIL deal, I think. And, time will tell if it all works out for the Canes with him. I think it's going to work out for Jaden Rashada. I feel pretty confident that Jaden Rashada's got an NIL deal. So Emory probably wants one too. And, he's not going to get the same value that Jaden Rashada probably has coming into college. But look, everybody else is getting NIL deals. So I think kids that don't have NIL deals start to work the system a little bit to get some attention. And maybe that's what's going on with Emory Williams, with FSU, Auburn, and some others. But right now I'm not willing to say, Matt, that he's not going to come to Miami. I still think there's a chance he will. You agree?
I think if I had to guess right now, people always say, what would you say if your life was at stake? What would you say? I don't think Emory Williams winds up at Miami. Like, I'm just going to tell it like it is. I mean, I love Emory to death. I talk to his dad all the time.
Nice kid.
I've seen these things play out over and over again through the years. And I feel a lot better about a commitment that has weighed all of his options, has visited all the schools, knows what he's seen, knows what he wants, and knows where things stand now with NIL, and then commits. In this case, Miami was his biggest offer. He really didn't have, he went to some other camps and had other schools look at his film. He just didn't get offers. When he committed to Miami, no FSU offer, no Auburn offer. It was mostly minor offers. I mean, they didn't really want this out there, but I mean, he was choosing between really Miami and Cincinnati, and I think Indiana. Like, those were the schools that were, actively chasing him when he committed. And if he has a good senior season or a great senior season, he'll be gone. And if he doesn't, I'm not sure Miami wants him anyway. It's like a catch-22. So I just don't see how he winds up here unless, like you said, Mr. Ruiz wants to just basically have two huge NIL deals at quarterback, because that's what it's going to probably take.
Yeah. All right, so we'll see what happens there. That's the update on that. Let's move on to the running back position. Basically, we think Miami's going to take one running back in recruiting this year. There's 3 candidates right now to get that spot, and they might take 2 actually. If they
I was
can
about
get,
to say, I don't know about 1. They'll take 2 if they can.
They'll take 2 if they can, but that's going to be predicated probably on Mark Fletcher deciding to come. Once Christopher Johnson, if he commits like they hope he will, that would take up one spot. And I think they would still take Mark Fletcher if he wanted to come. If Christopher Johnson and Mark Fletcher or one of them commits, I don't know, Matt, where that leaves Roderick Robinson, who's presently committed to UCLA. At that point, maybe he stays with UCLA. Your thoughts?
Roderick Robinson, I did talk to him the other day, and he's definitely interested in Miami. But again, it behooves these recruits to really explore their options. And honestly, it's almost like a business negotiation when you're committed somewhere, because even with Miami commitments, they could say, listen, so-and-so school, this is, of course, not on the up and up, but this is what's going to happen. Such as a school has a booster who's offering me X amount of money, and all of a sudden, somebody at Miami gets that recruit in touch with John Ruiz, and is he going to stick or not? Because, what's the money situation? And this is recruiting now. I'm sorry to keep bringing it up, but this is what it is. And sometimes it's hard to tell when Miami reaches out to a Roderick Robinson, which just happened, got serious in the last month or two. They recruited him to Oregon, but he got serious with Miami in the last month or two when, Christopher Johnson is sort of not ready to commit, and they thought he was. So, all of a sudden Roderick Robinson's on board. Well, if you're Roderick Robinson, what's the harm in saying, hey, UCLA, man, I got some other options that are really, really good, and if you want to lock me down, you know what you got to do.
Hello, Emory Williams, right?
It's the same thing. It's just the reverse. That's why I'm saying it goes both ways. So it can help Miami, it can hurt Miami. But in the end, it just hurts fans, because fans sort of get attached to the commitment list. They say, oh, we're number 8. Oh, we're number 5. Oh, we're number 4, whatever it is. And it can all just blow up because of money, which is something that NCAA football fans are just not used to seeing. And I don't like it in that sense at all. I want players to be compensated fair value or whatever they can get. Great. But I don't like that, something I've covered for 22 years, recruiting is just getting turned on its head. And, I talk to other people about it all the time. And it's just, what I hear from other people is just shocking. It's not recruiting. It's salary negotiation. Recruiting
really
is now, you may as well call it salary negotiation. It's not recruiting.
Well, first there's recruiting. And then once the recruiting is in a good spot, then there's salary negotiations. Absolutely. All right, so that's the running back situation. We still think there's a very good chance that Fort Lauderdale-Dillard's Christopher Johnson does become a Miami Hurricane. But, he visited Ole Miss. He doesn't seem in a hurry to commit. Texas A&M, Clemson are also after him as well. So the waters have gotten a little muddy over there at Dillard when it comes to Chris Johnson. We'll see what happens. But he's a big priority for the Hurricanes. And Mark Fletcher is going to be a late decision. He's been committed to Ohio State, is continuing to be committed to Ohio State. He will be a decision probably closer to the signing day in December. If he's going to flip, that's when it would probably happen. We'll see what happens there. All right, wide receivers have gotten a little tricky because there's been some scuttlebutt that Robbie Washington, who's been committed for a while, is going to visit Louisville. Now, I have a problem with this, Matt, because Robbie Washington will get an NIL deal at Miami. Maybe Louisville would offer him more money. Maybe they wouldn't. I don't know. But, he committed. He's been committed. Now they're floating this Louisville nonsense. And, that bugs me a little bit. I don't, they took him and his brother. They gave the family 2 scholarships to the University of Miami that are each worth, $250,000 apiece. There comes a time. It's like these kids that do the hat games at their announcements. It bothers me. It's like, show some respect. You committed. You're being offered $500,000 worth of scholarships. You're gonna get NIL deals. Why play the game? I was kind of disappointed to see Robbie and Bobby Washington just get involved in that game. Your thoughts?
I'm just still confused. So Robert, if you're called Robert, your nickname is Bob, right? Am I wrong? Am I not understanding something?
You're right.
So Robbie Washington really is Robert Washington, which really is Bob Washington, which could be Bobby Washington. And Bobby Washington is really Robert Washington, which could be Robbie Washington. So, when people say, oh, we're hearing that Miami wants Robbie more than Bobby, well, which one's which? I don't know which one you're talking about. You have to be much more specific.
It's kind of like the Cavender twins, whose parents named them Hannah and Haley.
At least at least they have fairly different names. But anyway, look, people always think I'm
pretty close. I mean, it's close enough. They both start with the letter H, and they're twins. You can't tell the difference anyway. And
I guarantee there's people on the YouTube comments who are going to think I'm serious and are like, how does Matt not understand? One's Robbie and one's Bobby. He's an idiot, which I am. But in this case, I was trying to be somewhat funny, which I'm fairly certain I failed at that endeavor. However, with Robbie and Bobby, Robbie's, they've both always dreamed of being a Hurricane. Bobby was trying to commit forever, to the old staff. And they're just like, not yet. Let's wait, And Robbie just, always really wanted to come here. He just wasn't recruited by the prior staff. So, because he was small, I guess, which I don't think the prior staff understood that small, fast guys are okay. It's not so bad. So anyway, the fact is their hearts are in Miami. It just comes back to NIL. I mean, I can't keep rehashing this. I'm like so annoyed having to say it. Like, this is NIL based. They want to be here. As long as there's not a big discrepancy in money, they'll be at Miami. Like, this is not an Emory Williams situation.
Okay, so if you're Robbie Washington, let's say you have a $300,000 deal with Miami, and Louisville comes in and offers $400,000. You're going to
go to Miami. I think he'll go to Miami.
Right.
I think somebody has to double whatever he's going to get here. Yeah, that's my feeling. And listen, this is all speculation. I don't want people reporting to the NCAA that Miami's illegally inducing players with that. We're just throwing numbers out that are totally fictional. Like, Gary has no idea when he says 300,000. That's just a made up number. But the point is, you have to put a number somewhere, right? Because these kids' lawyers, these student athletes' lawyers are getting numbers from somewhere. And, it is what it is at this point. But they both want to be here. As long as Miami does what they need to do, both of them will be here, period. Like, I'm not worried about either of them. They could take, 50 visits and get 50 different offers. And as long as Miami's somewhat competitive in there, they'll be here. They have no interest in playing for anybody except for the school that their father could not get into and play for. That's where they want to go.
All right, so that's what's going on there. We think Nathaniel Ray Joseph is solid to Miami. Doesn't seem to be any issues there. Miami is all in on Fort Lauderdale Stranahan's Hakeem Williams, and how that one's going to end, I don't know. Texas A&M is a serious player there as well. Florida State's pushing hard. Hakeem Williams, Matt, I think you would agree, could probably go in any of those directions, but whatever direction they go in, it will impact Jurian Dickey, who's the West Coast receiver, currently committed to Oregon. No secret that he's seriously considering Miami. But this Hakeem Williams recruitment could impact the Jurian Dickey recruitment, as we've talked about. And I don't really have a feel, Matt, for which way this Hakeem thing is going to go. Do you?
I think most of Hakeem's friends that I talk to think he's going to Texas A&M. But again, this is not a normal situation. You have to add in all these other factors we talked about, plus the fact that someone like Hakeem, every recruit has a different personality. And I've talked to Hakeem a few times, and he's a little bit difficult to really get a read on. Some recruits, honestly, are quite open. They'll tell a coach, from what I understand, listen, here's where I stand, because coaches really want that. Mario Cristobal's big thing is building that relationship that goes both ways, where there's just pure honesty. And that's what he stresses to recruits is listen, if you don't, want to come here, like, just let us know so we can move on, type of thing, once they've built that relationship. With Hakeem, it's a little different because, he wants to feel the love from a lot of top programs. He likes Miami a lot. He went to games last year. Remember, some of these horrible games last year, he was the only big recruit that would show up at these games last year. I don't know if you recall that. So he loves the program. But I think this is going to be one of those cases where if he's going to, make a commitment before the season, it's probably going to be Texas A&M. However, with that said, if he does that, I still think Miami will be in play. I think what he needs to see at Miami is how they run the offense. And if it's a program where he can really have a role right away. He wants to play early. He wants to have an NIL deal. and he wants to be in a good passing offense. So Tyler Van Dyke's leaving. He has to have an idea that Jake Garcia is going to be there, or Jakari is going to be okay, or whoever's coming in, Jaden Rashada, whatever it is, that someone's going to be there who can really get him the ball. And then he has to see that Josh Gaddis isn't this 50-50 run-pass guy who just wants to throw short routes to Xavier Restrepo and the running backs. If that's the offense he sees, that's not going to do Miami any favors. So I'm hoping that Josh Gaddis recognizes that the top Miami recruits want a wide-open downfield passing attack with a run game that is multiple, that can succeed between the tackles, have zone schemes, like do everything. Because that's what Mark Fletcher wants, a power running game, not just this little, outside zone and, all this other stuff. Like, that's just not his style. And if you want to get a Mark Fletcher, he's told, and I love Mark to death. We've had some very, very good conversations. And of course, when you're committed somewhere, you're not going to say, oh, I'm serious about whatever school nowadays. That's just not how these recruits play the game. But I'm telling you right now, if Miami has a good enough offensive line to where they have some success running the ball, and I'm talking about between the tackles, okay, I think there's a chance that Mark Fletcher will visit officially before signing day. Probably they sneak in here the weekend before signing day, and there will be some major drama. It could be like Tracy Howard-esque. Don't be shocked.
I agree.
So we'll see. That's why I think they could take two running backs. I mean, I think they're going to have one running back committed by then, and I think they're going to try to hit a home run with Mark. They need that. They need a guy like that desperately, not just because you at some point you got to stop the bleeding at American Heritage. You've got to. And if it doesn't start with Mark Fletcher, and we'll talk about Damari later, but if it doesn't start with those guys, like, who does it start with? You're here. Mario Cristobal is here now. This is where it ends. He doesn't want to start his tenure in recruiting here with the top guys from American Heritage continuing to leave town. And he's not going to let it happen, and he won't let it happen. He will, he will slash tires. He will ground airplanes. Like, that's what he'll do. He'll do anything it takes, whatever it takes, right? What's the saying? Actually, this is funny. His saying is, however you do something is how you do everything.
Yeah.
Right? Or is it however you do anything is how you do everything. Sorry. And Tyler Van Dyke in his interview the other day says, oh yeah, we follow that. However you do everything is how you do anything. And he goes, oh no, wait. It's however you do anything is how you do everything. It's a complicated phrase, but it's not a very complicated idea. The idea just is 100% every second of everything you do. All right, that's my personal mantra. Mario stole that from me, but
Speaking of Heritage, I don't think Miami will stop trying to recruit Brandon Innes up to the very end either.
Right, all those, you cannot have those three guys just leave. I mean, the class will be a success anyway, but that would be a major area failure because you need that pipeline at American Heritage. I mean, you just got in Darryl Porter Jr., whose dad's coached at Heritage for years, and Dad flat out told me a while back that Darryl's trying to help get kids from Heritage to Miami and how important that is. And if those three guys, escape Mario Cristobal's clutches and take a bicycle ride to Ohio State or wherever because the plane's grounded and the tires are slashed, that's just not a good start at that school for a Miami program that desperately needs American Heritage prospects and IMG prospects and Miami Central prospects and St. Thomas Aquinas prospects and Shaman Madonna prospects here. If you win at those 4 or 5 schools, I mean, you're winning national titles within the 2 to 4 year range we were talking about. But you've got to get them all. You can't just let a couple of those schools say, oh, well, we missed those 2 schools. We'll try to figure it out at 2 or 3 other schools. I mean, that's just not
right. So you players out there, any South Florida high school, whether Matt just named them or not, Miami's got to get you. That's the bottom line.
Should I run through the whole list? How much time you got?
You went through most of them. All right, and they're also going to continue to recruit Andy Jean from Miami Northwestern.
By the way, do you agree that Azubi's story with Luther Campbell was a puff piece? That was on our message board. I'm like, he was asking these guys what the guy said.
They're starting to bother me. It's like there's way too, and if you guys are watching, there's way too much complaining on our message board right now. It's like, it is ridiculous. Like, that was a very...
Wait till the season starts.
That was a very... But I mean, they're just... It's like, it's just like, come on, man. It's like, if you don't like a story, it's okay. But, don't question, our judgment on whether we should have done a story. I mean, if you're not interested in it or you don't like it, it's fine. Don't read it. comment about it on the message boards, whatever. But it's like every day, it's like something else, man. It's like, it's just weird. It's very, very weird. But anyway, I thought the story was a good story. But anyway, and I understand people's frustrations with Luther Campbell. I do. I mean, he's been hot and cold for years. But in fairness to Luther Campbell, the Miami program's been kind of cold. And, he hasn't always been treated with the respect that he probably should have. He is now. I think it took a little time. I don't think it was like just an instant, oh, Luther's on board. I think, Mario and the team had to show him that things are different now. And I think they have. And I think now he's back on board. And we wrote about him being on board. What is wrong with that? I don't see it. All right. Continue on here. Tight end should be pretty much done with the 3 commitments: Jackson Carver, Reed McKeska, and Riley Williams. No signs that any of them are not solid. Looks like they'll all be at Miami. Great recruiting haul at tight end, and things are in good shape there. All right, offensive line. Obviously, Miami's got commitments from Francis Magoa, Antonio Tripp, Frankie Tinalau, Connor Liu, and Tommy Kinsler. That is a great offensive line class, in my opinion. Frankie's a little bit of a project. Antonio to a little lesser extent. But Magoa, Liu, and Kinsler should be ready to rock and roll when they get here. And Miami is still engaged in the recruitment of 5-star offensive tackle Samson Oklenola. And Matt, you spoke to Samson this week. Give us your thoughts on whether Samson lands in this class.
Yeah, and just to be clear, Frankie is also taking OV official visits. So, you always have
to we'll see. That. He says he is, but he hasn't yet.
Yeah, if other schools want him to visit, he will. So, there's that. I'm just mentioning it. So, yeah, Samson, I just talked to him, and I have to type it up. So that'll be hopefully the next day. We have practice today. I got to find some time to write a nice story on Samson. But, the gist of that story is he committed to Miami. He doesn't want anyone to know. Oh, did I just say that out loud? No, I'm just kidding. He says he has a top 9, and they're all still in play, and they're all even. That's what he told me. And we actually had a great conversation because I'm not too serious about this recruiting stuff anymore with NIL and my advanced age. So, there were a couple of questions where I prefaced it saying, I know you don't want to answer this question, but I'm a reporter, so I have to ask it anyway. To which he would laugh. I'd ask the question, and then he'd respond with an answer that told you nothing. So you guys can all read that riveting interview when I type it up. You will all be shocked by the revelations of Samson Okunlola. Stay tuned.
If Samson doesn't come to Miami, there's a couple other guys they're recruiting.
And by the way, I do think he winds up at Miami. By the way, that's my personal feeling. He did not tell me that. Okay, to be clear, that's my personal feeling.
I agree with you. I agree with you that I think he's going to end up at Miami too. But if he doesn't, they're still recruiting a couple guys: Monroe Freeling, Nathan Afobe. But I'm not sure. In fact, I'm pretty sure neither one of those makes the cut if Samson Okunlola comes, because at that point they'll have 6 offensive linemen, and I think that's probably enough for one recruiting cycle. All right, we're going to talk about defense in a moment, but first we got the world premiere of a new Life Wallet commercial today with the Cavender twins, Hannah and Haley. Hopefully you can tell them apart. It's a cool commercial. Enjoy.
Hey sis, want to play one-on-one? What about 3-on-3? Let's do it. You're not Haley. Wait a minute.
Life Wallet user not detected.
I knew it.
Secure your health information and privacy with Life Wallet. Life Wallet. Saving time, saving lives.
What do you think, Matt? They cloned the Cavender girls.
Was that a horror? Was that supposed to be a horror commercial? scared the hell out of me. I was trying to find it while it was on. There's that old German doppelganger movie. Maybe one of the message board posters will remind me of it. But yeah, I mean, it seemed to pay tribute to that.
It was cool, but
which was a factory.
Pretty amazing. I mean, the work that LifeWallet. This is the in-house staff at MSP Recovery that's creating these LifeWallet commercials, and man, these are talented people. I mean, they know how to use their technology, and congrats to them on that one. I thought that was pretty good. They've done some good ones lately. That one, the one with Morgan Penkow, I thought was very good. The JC Hinton one with her coming out of the pool. They're doing some good work over there for LifeWallet. I hope people are getting their app. And John Ruiz and his company are getting their money's worth. All right, let's talk defense, Matt, and where things are. And we'll start with the defensive line. Now, this one's interesting. They've got one major commitment, Jaden Wayne. He seems very solid. Doesn't look like there's any issues there. From there, they have a absolutely star-studded list of defensive line recruits. But they haven't been able to get any of them to commit yet, Matt. And it's really, when you look at how good recruiting has gone at so many spots, it's kind of curious that they have not been able to close on yet on these defensive line recruits, and that's got to be very high up on Mario Cristobal's agenda. Starting off with Ruben Bain, Miami Central defensive end. You know the deal. His brother is on the staff at Reggie. He's former Kane Tolbert Bain's nephew, so deep ties to Miami here, but he's having a lot of fun in recruiting. He's taken official visits to Alabama, Auburn, and Oklahoma, getting the full court press, riding around in golf carts with Nick Saban, and really just feeling the joys of being a big-time prospect. And we had Zuby Charles did an interview with him, I guess about a week or so ago, and he said he's not in any hurry, Matt, to commit. And man, it's like, is it time? What do you think? Is it time for Ruben Bain? Everybody thinks he will eventually land at Miami. Is it time for him to commit?
I mean, it would be helpful if he committed. That's for sure. By the way, I think the movie I was thinking of was Metropolis back in the 1920s. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that was it.
Oh my God. Can you ever stay on topic ever?
This is way more important.
We're 37 minutes into this show. We got to do defensive recruiting. So stay on topic.
Yeah, I'm trying to think if that was a doppelganger one. I think it was a bunch of robots and something. I don't know. All right. So anyway, yeah, listen, Ruben Bain, if he commits early, it helps Miami, for many reasons. A local top prospect who commits helps recruit other prospects, helps make the class better, especially on the defensive line. Other defensive linemen want to know that there's going to be great defensive linemen coming in with them, so they're not going to be double and triple teamed 3 to 4 years later when they're planning to be NFL caliber players and they can get their 15 sacks or whatever, Gregory Rousseau-like numbers. So yeah, it's important, but listen, I'll take his commitment on signing day, if that's what it takes. And I know he's gone. I think he's already had his heart set on announcing it at All-Star game on signing day or then the All-Star game again. So this is something where I think Miami is confident he's coming. But I mean, man, you just got to wait, and defensive line is the position where I would say has the most remaining, right? You pretty much know if the commitment list holds, which who knows, but if it does hold at this early point, really, you're going to take another 3 or 4 defensive linemen, I think, is what they really want.
Oh, there's no doubt. I mean, they'll take any of these guys. They're not turning any of these guys away.
No, of course not. But I'm saying
they are recruiting the creme de la creme.
Yeah, I just don't think they get more than 3 or 4 of these guys. But yeah, if they get 3 or 4 of the guys that's in this, if they get 3 to 4 of the guys that are all mentioned in this front page story that are the main guys, I mean, that's one of the best defensive line classes in the country. Is it the Texas A&M class of last year? No, but no class ever has been. But this will be the class that in 2 to 3 years will make Miami a dominant defensive front, which is all you really want. You don't need 5 or 6 5 and 4-star prospects. You just need, 2 or 3 guys that pan out that are big-time playmakers to join the other guys in the other classes. And that's what you'll have if they can do that.
Well, we're talking about David Hicks out of Texas. That's a battle. Texas A&M is probably the leader right now, but Miami's right there in it. And my intelligence in that department tells me that his parents, like his mom, likes Miami a lot and would like to see him go to Miami, and his dad probably leaning a little bit towards Texas A&M, probably for business purposes. Let's be honest. I mean, Texas A&M has a very successful NIL program, but this one could go either way. He's already officially visited Miami, so we'll see what happens there. That could go either way. Same thing with IMG's Samuel and Pemba. A recruitment that's going very, very well from what my sources are telling me. I mean, he's been to Miami 3 times unofficially since the new staff came on board. He was here as recently as July 30th, and he has a top 7: UM, Florida, Oregon, Tennessee, Alabama, Georgia, and Notre Dame. Miami's in pretty good company there, but I've heard that one is going extremely well. And then there's Damon Wilson from Venice. I hear that one is going extremely well. So I wouldn't be surprised if they got 2 of those guys, of those 3. And then they're also recruiting Jordan Hall, who was here for the barbecue July 30th. We did an interview with him. That looks like a Miami-Georgia battle. And then Nicholas Harbor out of D.C. He's got a bunch of schools. Miami, Michigan, USC, Georgia, LSU, South Carolina, and Maryland are his top 7. I hear LSU and Miami are probably doing the best of all of those. So the bottom line, Matt, and there's a couple other options too. Terry Simmons, a commit to Duke. But the bottom line, Matt, at defensive line recruiting is they're right there. Like they are right there with some of the best prospects in the country. Just got to get a couple closed.
Yeah, and by the way, it was your contemporary Fritz Lang in Metropolis in 1927. When you were a young lad, that was the movie I was thinking of. That was the robot doppelganger movie. Clearly, a major influence on the amazing cinematography by John Ruiz's people over there. And kudos to them for going back to the 1920s. And I'm sure you inspired it in part. Since that was probably one of your favorite movies as a young man. So yeah, love that. And listen, they need some doppelgangers on the defensive line. All those guys you mentioned are big-time playmakers. You need those big-time doppelgangers that are just, pounding in the trenches, man, getting to the quarterback, stopping the run. Like, when's the last time that you remember them having a dominant defensive line? Because you've had Jalen, you had Jalen Phillips, you had Gregory Rousseau, but those weren't great defensive lines.
No, they were isolated individuals, right?
The best defensive line was it 2018 when they had that big defensive tackle. Why am I forgetting? Gerald Willis. But, Gerald Willis had one good year, right? Gregory Rousseau had one good year. Jalen Phillips had one good year. And even that Gerald Willis defensive line, Gerald Willis wasn't drafted from what I remember, right? He certainly hasn't made it in the NFL.
Very similar story to like Charleston Rambo last year. We had a great college football season, and you never heard from them again.
Yeah, Rousseau and Phillips obviously were first rounders, but you got to get back to that level. And I know Gary harps on this all the time, and I disagree. But you do need defensive linemen that are first-round guys, because you can have skill guys that don't get drafted and that are great college players. Typically,
you said I harp on it, and you agree, right?
Only on the defensive line. Okay. Don't get all high and mighty, okay? You're still wrong. Right. On the defensive line, if you have that NFL body type to be a first or second-round talent, you are going to excel in college. And if you don't, there's a little bit less chance than some of the skill guys who just aren't NFL body types to really have a great NFL season or career, in my opinion. Being an expert, such an expert.
So there are a few other options. I mentioned Terry Simmons. He's committed to Duke. They love him. Then there's a Michigan State commit, Andrew DePepe, Joseph Mapoy, and Jordan Renaud are also still being recruited. But I think that the priorities are the first group that I mentioned. If they can get 3 of those guys, they will be thrilled to death. All right, linebacker, there's 3 committed right now: Malik Bryant, Popo Aguirre, and Bobby Washington. Miami may try to add one more to that list, and we're keeping an eye on a kid by the name of Marcellus Pulliam. Auburn is a front runner for him, but he has made it clear he could take a Miami visit this fall. So we're keeping an eye on that.
Yeah, and by the way, speaking of keeping an eye on things, it's a silent I. It's Marcellus, but yeah.
Okay.
Other than that, you're doing great.
All right, I'm doing my best. All right. Defensive backs. I'm also, people are sitting in parking lots right now saying, "Come on, guys, get through this already."
Oh my God, it's been 44 minutes. Yeah, let's go.
I've given you 44 minutes of my morning commute.
Let's go.
I need to get into the office. So, and I love recruiting. So please finish. Okay, so DBs. Commitment solid from Robert Stafford. I think he's going to be a great college football player. He's out of Melbourne, Florida. That seems pretty solid. Now, there's some ongoing recruitments here. I am expecting a commitment from Damari Brown. He's American heritage. He's a cornerback. Father Selwyn's a former Cane. I think he ultimately comes around and commits to Miami. What the timing is going to be, we don't really know yet. But this is a kid that everybody wants. I mean, his other official visits so far are Alabama and Clemson. So Miami's just going to have to hang in there. I do think they win out in the end, but it's not going to be easy because of the company that Damari Brown is keeping and recruiting. Miami's also chasing Cormani McClain. That one's going to go down to the wire. Matt, I have not seen any sign that he's coming to Miami. I know his only official so far was to Miami. He'll be taking other trips in the fall, but doesn't seem to be around as much as some of the other kids that we do think will ultimately pick Miami.
It just makes me so upset that you're so negative. I mean, Cormani McClain's not coming to Miami? What, are you kidding me? The whole class will fall apart if he doesn't come to Miami, Gary. Cormani McClain is a long shot. I don't understand why Conrad Hussey hasn't committed to Miami already. Kylan Webb, look, Mario's thing, and I know Mario. You and I both know Mario very well from over the years. Mario would like nothing better than to take Clemson commitments, Alabama commitments, which they did last year, obviously. And they flipped a Clemson kid this year, obviously. Student athlete this year. And Florida State and Florida. Those are the four schools that if Mario could just like dig it into them, man, like that's what he's going to do. So yeah, they're going to go after Kylan Webb. They will go after any Clemson, FSU, Florida, or Alabama commitment that's interested that they feel is good enough to play for Miami. Like that's just Mario. Like he enjoys it. It would be it would be like when your children were younger, Gary, and you only could afford the one good cookie from the bakery because you were just starting CaneSport, right? And the kids are dying to have the cookie, but you just shove it in your mouth before they can have it, right? He just wants to steal that cookie from those schools and have it all to himself. And guess what? He's really good at stealing cookies, Mario. And by the way, the runtime of Metropolis, 1 hour 54, and we're going to hit that number if we don't wrap this up. So the ball's in your court, Ferman.
All right. So that's that. We'll have we're getting ready to head out to practice. We'll have a bunch of coverage as always from the practice field. And that'll be on the website around the middle of the day. Keep your eyes open for other stuff that we've got a lot of stuff that's working right now. So we'll have other, a whole bunch of stories coming in the next few days as well. We'll talk about them on this show as we move forward. So thank you so much for making us part of your morning. If we held up you, if we made you late for work, we apologize. For Matt Shodell, I'm Gary Ferman. We'll see you next time, everybody.